Hello everybody, thanks for joining me on The Real World Prepper. Today, let's present a little proof that we are lab rats in a diabolical experiment. Stick around.
Hey, if you like my content, please subscribe to my channel. Hit the thumbs up button and share this with everybody that you know. I'm also over on Patreon if you want to join me, and you can connect with me via email or snail mail. It's all in my About section on my channel. Thanks.
Ladies and gentlemen, thanks for joining me today on this edition of The Real World Prepper. A couple of questions for you. Do you believe that you have your own thoughts? Do you believe that you know the truth about your life, about your world, about how things go and why they go? Do you know why you believe what you believe? Well, this video is about social engineering. It's about social scientists. A big player that I'm going to mention a few examples of in this is the Tavistock Institute. If you don't know what that is, look it up, Tavistock Institute. There are other subgroups by the Tavistock Institute. They include, but are not limited to, the Stanford Research Institute, MIT, the National Institute of Mental Health, to name a few. And there is evidence, much of it, if you'll look, of the deliberate effort to shape the moral, the spiritual, the cultural, the political, and the economic decline of the United States and of Western nations, largely the United States and Great Britain. The federal government has funded Tavistock and its subgroups to the tune of hundreds of millions of dollars for years, as have other financial giants, corporate institutions, and Wall Street alike. These think tanks have literally brought on the Second World War and every subsequent war since World War II. By the year 2000, there was hardly any aspect of American life that these groups had not directly affected and or influenced. This includes every level of government, from your local government on up to your federal government. It includes industry, trade, education, and political institutions. I mean, think about that. You know, all the conspiracies that you hear on YouTube that I've even talked about before. You know, and I talked about early on in my channel that one of the things I'm going to talk about, you know, prepping, world events, politics, conspiracy theories, and all that. Why do you think so many of them exist? Why do you think they're so at large, you know? And of course, you know, the mainstream thought on that is that, oh, well, conspiracy theory kooks, you know, because we all know that the government and the news and all the organizations that count, that tell the truth, their version is the actual version of how things happen. Every mental and psychological aspect of our nation has been analyzed, has been recorded, has been profiled, and has been stored for years, okay? What has come out of this information gathering is what Tavistock Institute has called their three-system response. Now, how populations react to stress resulting from contrived situations that then become crisis management exercises. Let me repeat that. Populations react to stress resulting from contrived situations, that's deliberately created situations. They then become crisis management exercises. Does that sound familiar? I'm going to name some of these just examples. You guys, I'm sure, are already thinking some of these examples. I'm going to be careful in how I name them because I don't want this video to be removed or flagged or anything like that. But think of Sandy. Think of the event in 2001 in September, the various pandemic scares, one in which we're currently going through now, the hacks from that other country, allegedly, etc., etc., etc. So I have made notes. That's why I'm flipping my notebook here. What we obviously have in the United States is a government that creates a situation that's viewed by citizens as a crisis. And then the government manages that crisis. A good example of this, a good historical example that you'll all know and recognize, is the 1941 attack on Pearl Harbor by the Japanese. Now look this up for any sourcing you want to fact check me on any of this stuff. The Rockefellers and their influence and their money, they transferred a bunch of cash to a German journalist and social intelligence officer. He was a spy by the name of Richard Sorge. If I'm saying that right, S-O-R-G-E, Richard Sorge. The huge sum of cash was then transferred to a member of the Japanese imperial family in order to prompt Japan to fire the first shot so that President Roosevelt and his administration could enter the United States into World War II. The goal was largely to financially choke out Japan and its industries. This was achieved by the U.S. and Great Britain, ignoring the previously set up trade agreements with Japan. Japan could no longer get the raw materials it needed to fuel its various industries, and thusly was choked out financially. During this process, there was a huge propaganda effort in the United States to dehumanize the Japanese. Tavistock was responsible for crafting the rampant anti-Japanese propaganda that swept over our nation during that time. This is just one part of that puzzle, okay? It goes way deeper in the details. Like I say, look it up yourself if you want to. But rest assured, it was a huge example of effective social engineering and an example of Tavistock, one of many, but they're certainly one of the largest, of being behind the engineering effort. They were a big player then. They are an even bigger player today. Another more recent example would be the Gulf War. George Bush and Tony Blair, they knew that Iraq didn't have weapons of mass destruction, largely because after the 1991 invasion and the subsequent sanctions that were imposed on Iraq, their weapons program was gone. They didn't have anything. The U.S. and the British leaders both knew that this was a contrived or deliberately created situation. There existed proof that Saddam Hussein's weapons program had been nullified after the 1991 invasion. But because of Bush and Blair's decision, along with the Tavistock brainwashing and the Committee of 300, well over 1 million people died, including Americans, of course. Over 1 million people died. Mostly they were Iraqis, but nonetheless, people died because of these lies, because of this social engineering that was done. The Committee of 300, by the way, is a secret group, one of these secret groups that you hear about, founded in the 1700s. It influences politics, economics, finance, military, etc. Around the world. Think Bilderberg and those types of things. Small groups of people hold all the power, in this country, as we know. The fact that George Bush and Tony Blair blatantly lied, and they were found out, as it were, proof, and the results were enormous death tolls and financial losses, and the fact that they were able to stay in their high offices, the highest office in the land in our country, as if nothing happened. Went on like nothing happened. The fact that this is how it played out, that all these crimes were perpetrated, these lies were told, and they stayed in office with virtually no repercussions, speaks to the power of the Tavistock Institute's long-range penetration and inner conditioning of the American people that would cause them to docilely accept such a horrific situation without ever taking to the streets in rage. Why did they not? Why did we, the American people, not take to the streets in rage and literally remove those that were in power at the time? Instead, the reaction was to adopt shallow sloganeering, which was passed off in the population at large's minds as ideals. This is the state of us Americans today. Now listen to what I said. The reaction was to adopt shallow sloganeering, right? America, right? Which was passed off in the population's minds as ideals. So these slogans became the ideals to the to the dumbed down brains and engineered brains of a lot of Americans that frankly are unthinking. Most are sloganeering do-nothings. Now, if I hadn't offended anyone yet, I'm probably about to. And that's not my goal, is to offend. I just want to speak some truth here. Today's church has been dumbed down. It's been neutered. It's been castrated through social engineering, through this same type of design work. Probably from the same sources, okay? Sorry for the train whistle. With prosperity gospels, with milk diets, no meat, false teachers, the general watering down and omissions of truth, the church is being deceived. On purpose, by design, it is engineered. And it is done so for the purpose of drawing us away from God. Instead of drawing us to God, it's meant to draw us away from God. The influence of these deceivers is immeasurable. It's a massive deception. I don't care about calling some of these folks out. These are very influential people that I'm talking about. There's smaller ones too. I mean, it's just like in the government, we're talking about from the local levels up to the federal levels. Well, it's the same way from local churches, small churches, all the way up to the big names. Very influential and popular churches, church leaders that are loved and followed by millions of Christians today. And I'm not saying these folks aren't Christians. They're deceived. You know, the like of Joel Osteen, Joyce Meyer, Brian Houston of Hillsong, the Bethel Church, Joseph Prince, Rick Warren of Saddleback, Stephen Furtick at Elevation, T.D. Jakes, Creflo Dollar, Kenneth Copeland, the list goes on and on and on and on. Not to mention the contemporary Christian music industry. That is an industry of lies and deceit too. I'm just calling it like I see it, guys. So again, let me ask. Do you believe that you have your own thoughts? Do you believe that you know the truth? Do you know why you believe what you believe? Is it based on a lie? Is it based on you having been engineered? What we should be doing right now, ladies and gentlemen, is focusing on God. We need to be in His Word. We need to be praying daily for discernment so that we are not deceived. Because this has been going on for years, and there are proofs out there if you want to look and find them. And it's bringing this country down. Satan is the reason why this country is in the shape that it's in, why this world is in the shape that it's in. Okay? So protect yourself. Protect yourself, your loved ones, your family. Be a beacon of light. Be truth, you know. But to be truth, to be a beacon of light, to say these things and to understand these things, you've got to know it yourself. You've got to pray to God. You've got to pray for discernment. You've got to understand that Jesus Christ is the only way to salvation, that He died on the cross for you and I. We need to be in the Bible, in the Word. I am a failure at that. I am not claiming to be some better than you person, because I'm not. Okay? I need these things. I need these things as much as you guys do. Look, that's all I've got today on the Real World Prepper. I hope this has provoked some thought in you, and I hope that it leads you closer in your relationship with Christ. And if you don't have one, know that He is available. Okay? Thanks again, Real World Prepper. I'll see you guys next time.